Hello, we're going to first review how to expand when we're multiplying two binomials. And the quickest way to do this is to use the FOIL method. The FOIL method just stands for multiply the first numbers, multiply the outer numbers, multiply the inner numbers, and multiply the last number. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to first multiply our first numbers, which is x and x, which gives us x squared. We're then going to multiply our outer numbers, which is an x and a negative 3, to give us a negative 3x. We then are going to multiply our inner numbers, which is a 4 and an x, which would give us plus 4x. And then the last is the last numbers, which is the 4 and the negative 3. Which will give us negative 12. Looking at this, we then combine any terms that we can, and we can combine our x terms to get a positive x, and then this is our expanded binomials. Now we're going to look at how to actually factor. So factoring is going to go in the reverse way. So it's starting with something like this, which is a trinomial, and getting it back into this form where it's factored into two binomials. So essentially we're going to learn how to unfoil. If you looked at when we foiled something, the first two numbers always had to multiply together to give us the first term. And the last numbers had to be multiplied together to give us the last term. The middle numbers, when they're multiplied together, they're actually combined at the end, and that will give us that they're added together, and they'll give us our middle term. So when we do this, I like to set them up into our two parentheses, and I actually set them up vertically first, and then I'll write them horizontally the way they should be. This just helps me with organizing, because I know that the two terms over here have to give me the first term. So if I look at this x squared, I know that has to be x times x. And they're really easy to multiply because I know they're both the first ones and they're right above each other. Then, to actually factor, there's a little bit of a guess and check method going on. I know that the two numbers that are the last terms have to multiply to 6, but they also have to, when they're combined, have to add up to a negative 7. So I have to think about all the factors that can be multiplied together to get 6. So if I think about that on the side over here, one of them could be 1 times 6, because that would give us 6. Or we could have a negative 1 times a negative 6, and that would also give us 6. Could have 2 times 3, and that would give us 6. Or a negative 2 times a negative 3. That would also give us 6. So looking at these, any of these numbers would work, except I need them to be combined in the center to get a negative 7x. So when I do that, I look here and I'm like, well, when I multiply negative 1 times a negative 6, I do get 6. But if I would multiply them across to do the outer and the inners, and then combine them together, I would also get negative 7. So that's a negative 6 times x is a negative 6x, plus a negative 1 times x is a negative 1x. Them combined together would be negative 7x. So when we factor this trinomial, we actually get x minus 1 times the quantity x minus 6. And we can always check our work if we FOIL the factored version. It should give us the expanded version. So x times x, first number gives us x squared. Negative 1 times x is a one term. And then x times negative 6. Those combine together to get negative 7x. And then the last terms, they multiply together to get a positive 6.